You're listening to the Gambling Gauchos, part of the Stake in the Plains Content Network, and the Dave Campbell's Republic of Football podcast feed. Just a couple of casino caballeros talking Texas Tech, betting on the Big 12 and beyond. Now, here's Kyle Jacobson and Rob Bro, live from the Cardinal Sports Center studio.
Welcome to the Gambling Gauchos. I'm Rob Bro. He's Kyle Jacobson. He's Money Mainville. We got a lot to talk about today. We're going to talk about it from the Cardinal Sports Center studio. If you want to gear up for next football season, 250 some odd days away, you can do so at Cardinal Sports Center. Baseball season also right around the corner. It's midway through the basketball season. We're storming the Capitol January 6th to start conference play. You can gear up at Cardinal Sports, mycardinalsports.com, or in person right outside the Loop Slide Road. Basketball season is going on already, beating a Ken Palm 3,000 team this weekend, Vanderbilt. I thought you were going to get a little dicey there in the second half when they were storming back a little bit, but after the big run to start, you had a big run to finish in the second half and kind of played coast to coast there in the second, which you hadn't done yet this year, in my opinion.
Yeah, obviously, first 10-ish minutes of the game, you looked very much in control. Pop Isaacs knocks down back-to-back shots that look really good. Looking like himself in a neutral site game in DFW, very similar to what he did in Denton. And then you kind of lost some of that offensive gas. Obviously, Vanderbilt chips into it a little bit before halftime. And then after the break, you come out a little slow, but then I think really you just kind of laid into them. You made the right adjustments. Joe Toussaint continues to be a player who just wins you basketball games in any way that he can. And then we'll talk about Kerwin Walton, I'm sure, for an extended amount of time because he has once again had a tremendous performance. He's proving to be one of Texas Tech's best players right now. There's really no other way around it. And it's really impressive to see what he's doing. And really, I think this team as a whole is making adjustments, even in the face of big injuries to pivotal guys like Devin Cambridge. I think you're continuing to see the offense kind of adjust and adapt, try and figure out what works and what isn't going to work. And I think that's still what you've got, 3 more games for. But I think overall, you beat a team that you should have. You didn't let them hang around to the very end. You eventually kind of put your foot on the gas and took them out of it. But overall, I think a good win for Texas Tech on a neutral site against, unfortunately, a team that's going to end up being pretty bad, it looks like.
What do you think about game 2 in the post-Cambridge era of just Washington and Jennings getting minutes and really nobody else? YH, Kyron Lindsey, even up 20, you don't put a bunch of those guys in for lengthy time periods.
Yeah, I think that was an interesting thing to watch. I think you kind of wanted to see some of that over these non-conference games, and especially in Fort Worth, Darion Williams really struggled. I think he had 5 turnovers in that game. I'd posted some tweets on our Twitter account about, how he was kind of operating the offense out of the mid to low post, and he's got really good playmaking vision to do that out of the post. But it felt like in this game, his passing lanes kept getting shot. He was maybe seeing the pass, but not really seeing the defender. And so I think I would have been intrigued to see Kyron Lindsey, play for more than the last minute of the game, some more EY minutes. But I think that's still the biggest question mark of this team. And it seems like the staff is pretty much content on saying, all right, we're going to be essentially 2 deep in the front court, and we're going to surround those 2 with whatever it takes to be successful.
Kyle, I know you were independencing this weekend, but did you catch any of the game?
Only saw a little bit of the first half.
They're in the casino?
No, in like the saddest bar I've ever been in my life.
Shreveport was dead, I heard.
I don't know, man. It was weird. I think there's just like certain spots where you should go and like certain spots Like, we tried 2 or 3 different bars. We were, like, just asking around, like, "Hey, we're just looking for some appetizers and some TVs. Is there a good place to go?" And people were like, "Oh, yeah, like, go up here." And we'd pop in, and there's, like, 2 TVs in the whole place, and they're, like, on. I think there's some NFL games on because it was Saturday. And so then we'd ask them, like, "Hey, is there another place?" And they're like, "Yeah, go around the corner here." And we did, and then we walk in. We're the only 3 people in the bar. There's 1 employee. She's the bartender. She can't cook any food. She's like, "Yeah, sorry, my cook is running late." And we're like, "Okay." She doesn't have ESPN Plus, so we're like sitting there watching it on our phone. It was just kind of a bizarre experience.
Gotta love Shreveport. At least towns like that are making a killing getting bowl games in there. Just the thousands and thousands of people in attendance there at the Shreveport Independence Bowl.
Yeah, I didn't get a good read on how many Tech fans were there. I mean, did y'all see any shots on TV that might have? I was just like sitting high up, and so I couldn't get a good read on it.
It was close-up shots of everyone, and
Okay.
who knows who's who, and they didn't really pan the crowd, in my opinion, on the TV shot.
Gotcha. Cal was a few thousand, like like I thought it would be, and I got to say, it was cold too. And I was like, man, I have a lot of respect for these fans, assuming they're from somewhere on the West Coast, to fly to Shreveport, Louisiana, to freeze their butts off to watch the 4th bowl game of bowl season. 2 6-6 teams. So I imagine it probably wasn't that great of an experience in the end for them, but I respect the effort from the, I guess, hundreds of fans that made the trip for Cal. I don't know what a good comparison would be for Tech fans. I don't know. I guess if there was like a bowl game out in some town you've never heard of, South Carolina, against a 6-6 team, I feel like it takes a pretty diehard fan to travel that far for that. So I don't know. I'd be curious what our attendance was if it wasn't a couple hours from DFW and Houston. But I would say, just from my vantage point, I don't know. I couldn't even venture guess how many Tech fans were there, but it was a stronger showing than I thought it would be. And they announced 33,000 in the stadium, which like everybody kind of turned to each other and laughed. That that would have been half full, and like there's no way that place was half full. So yeah. Anyway, I have no idea what the final number was.
Next basketball game is next Thursday, so we'll talk about that one on Wednesday. The Lady Raiders do play before that, but they're undefeated. They look good. They do look good. We'll recap that game on Wednesday. Let's move on to the bowl game. The Independence Bowl, first off, hell of a trophy. I did not know the Independence Bowl was working like this. Sweet Eagle. It was double tiered, maybe even triple tiered, with an American flag flying underneath the eagle. Just a sick-ass trophy, in my opinion. Texas Tech, nightmare start. But a good recovery and dominated the second half, as the defense has done in several games this year. I wouldn't say all season, but in several games this year, you kind of turn around and turn it up in the second half defensively. Kyle, you were there. How was the sideline, the atmosphere, and what did you think about Loic Fouonji catching a touchdown in the transfer portal?
Well, when it started, and the first play from scrimmage was a touchdown pass after a fumbled kick return, I had that moment. I was like, what am I doing here? Why did I choose to spend my weekend driving to Shreveport, paying 3 times the cost of the actual ticket in StubHub fees? I wasn't like pessimistic about the game. I mean, there's so much clock left. I was like, we still have plenty of time, but literally could not have drawn up a worse start than that. So that sort of sense of dread, I was like, are we about to sit here for 3 hours and watch Cal just blow us out of the water to finish with a losing season? And thankfully, pretty much everything after that was all Tech. I know it was bad field position there, but I feel like we need to have a conversation about Tim DeRuyter defenses giving up touchdowns within like the opposing offense's first 3 plays from scrimmage. Happened against Texas last year, happened against Kansas State and Oklahoma State last year. It happened on Saturday against Cal. feel like I'm blanking on a couple others. And of course, he's incredible at the halftime adjustments, and the defense seemingly always gets better and better as the game goes on in most instances. But man, I wish we could find a way to not like automatically go down 7-0 to start a game against a quality opponent. So I don't know what that is, if that's just the other team scripting really well on offense or what the deal is there. But I hope it's nitpicky because overall very happy with the defense. But that's like one thing I would maybe want to clean up on that side of the ball. I'll be honest, I don't know why guys like Fungi and Valdez were playing. Unless there's some sort of reasoning that isn't well understood by the fans right now, it's just hard for me to justify giving guys like that playing time over younger, kind of like redshirt freshman types. This is more or less an exhibition game. Like, sure, you want to win it. It's a much better experience for the players, coaches, everyone involved, the fans, if Texas Tech wins. But I don't know. Like, if I'm one of those guys that isn't getting reps because Fungi or Valdez is, I'm standing on the sideline going like, why do they bring me to Shreveport? Why am I standing in the cold out here if they're not going to let me get some reps? So, and I think based on a couple other fans I talked to in the bleachers, sort of the same sentiment there. So I'm curious if y'all have an alternate take there, but I wasn't a fan personally.
There is the sentiment out there that Valdez and Fungi are only halfway out, that they might return. And so you let them play in the bowl game because they might come back. But I'm with you. I am just baffled that Bryson Donnell can't find 6 carries this season, especially in this bowl game. And everything you say about Anquan Willis all offseason, how he doesn't get a single touch this year. And Taj Brooks, your bell cow, your prize, is running, 10, 15 times in the fourth quarter after he comes up woozy. Put him in the ice bath. You're up 20. You do not need Taj Brooks in the second half of that bowl game. Let him rest. He can get all his yards next year. Let's see some of these freshmen. Isn't that why we're playing this bowl game? So we can see some of the young guys. That's what we did on defense. Why do we not do it on offense? I don't understand. I'm not opposed to Valdez and Fungi playing in the game. I thought it was funny that he caught a touchdown. I think he had 6 touches this year and 3 touchdowns, including the punt block. So pretty efficient there. But yeah, I wouldn't have played him. I think you win the game without him. But I would have done a lot of things differently last night, and that includes not playing Taj Brooks in the fourth quarter and letting some of these younger guys get reps.
Yeah, I guess that's another caveat I would add is like if the game is in the balance and we're trying to win it, okay, play your best guys. But yeah, once it's 31-14 and Cal hasn't scored in like 40 minutes of game clock, like are we going to blow a 20-point lead by letting Anquan Willis touch the ball or by letting Kelby Valson run one route?
Yeah, you're not burning any red shirts. The bowl game doesn't count.
Yeah, like those 3 redshirt freshman receivers or true freshmen that were redshirting this year, Kelby Valson, West, and Crest.
Yeah.
I don't think any of those 3 played a single snap.
No.
And like again, I want to give guys like Xavier White an opportunity to go out playing a bunch of snaps. They've earned that. But you got a player who's literally in the portal catching touchdown passes, and I'm thinking like, why is that not Aiken or McCray or Valson or whoever else? And I get what people are saying in the comments, like, well, like maybe they'll come back, and Joey's trying to help them get taped for the portal. Like, okay, but you have guys that are definitely coming back, guys who aren't in the portal, and you want them to develop as well. So like we're trying to – it's kind of like helping Oregon State facilitate a rivalry game when we couldn't even facilitate one of our own in the Big 12 scheduling matrix. And now we're supposed to kind of throw a lifeline to Loic Fungi, get him some game tape when there are guys that are going to be on our squad next year for sure that aren't in the portal who could have taken that rep instead. So I think it's kind of a bad look, honestly.
You any thoughts there, Mainville?
Well, I think on the topic of playing young guys, I think you saw that really pay off for you on defense. I mean, one of your best players defensively outside of Jacob Rodriguez obviously was Amir Washington, who just had a phenomenal game, was everywhere on the defensive line. And so I think when you're looking for for guys like that, like who's on the bottom of my depth chart, who's listed at like 3 or 4 deep that, is going to be at 1 or 2 next year. Like, hey, can we get him some reps here? Just try and figure out, how does he look against this scheme? How does he look in open space? I think that's something I would have liked to see, especially in the fourth quarter. There's a comment about Taj Brooks looking kind of hurt in the fourth quarter. I think something did ding him up. I couldn't tell if it was like his arm or his chest, but it was pretty obvious that he was hurting for a little while, and then took a tackle where he kind of like held his arm and then walked over to the sideline. And on the broadcast, you could see Zach Kitley like very visibly like cutting him off of the game, and he didn't play after that. And like that was the moment where it was decided, all right, now we're going to kind of let him take a back seat. But then it's Cameron Valdez that is taking those carries, not Bryson Donnell or any of the other young running backs on this team, where I think that's a question mark for you, is like, who gives spot carries to your team when Taj Brooks is out? I think that's a really valid question to ask right now, especially with Valdez, potentially or maybe not being gone. And so I think that's something I would have liked to see a little bit more, maybe even not from just the standpoint of let's get these guys extra reps, but just like, who are we missing? Like, who can we put in the game who's been at 3 or 4 deep, and can we just like get some film on them, give them something to work on this offseason, have something on our scout sheet to work on over the next few months. I think that's probably the direction I would have gone. But overall, a 20-point win didn't end up biting you too hard.
I think heading into conference play, I want to get into Amir Washington, who, by the way, third on the team in sacks. He played 2 games, had 3 sacks in 1 game. But go back to prior to maybe the Baylor game, or even heading into the West Virginia game at the start of Big 12 play. Somebody asked in the mailbag, over under 3.5 sacks for Steve Linton in Big 12 play. And Kyle and I both said, probably under. He hasn't produced yet, doesn't have a sack yet. It doesn't get easier in Big 12 play. Then he had 3 against Baylor. And Kyle and I both said, hey, hammer the over. He had 3 against Baylor. He'll get another one. Didn't get another sack all year. Didn't play in a couple of games. I think he played in 8 complete games. But then you have Amir Washington, who had 3 sacks in 1 game in the bowl game. Should he have played more? No, probably not. You like that red shirt. You like him coming up, but very confident in the production of the interior defensive line in the absence of Hutchings and Bradford moving forward. I really think they have some dudes there, including Duda Banks and Amir Washington, who both had really good games. I think Joseph Adedire, who now only has 2 years of eligibility after having to play the first 2 seasons here, but I'm a fan of the middle interior defensive line. Now you have to start looking at the interior offensive line. More portal news that we'll get to after the bowl game action, but there was one sequence that got a lot of ire in the Gambling Gauchos Discord. Really lit up like a Christmas tree at the end of the first half when you had 2 timeouts and like a minute left. You get inside the 15 and you throw it 3 times and then kick a field goal. Some upset Red Raiders there that you didn't run the ball at all. Overall, how do you think the offense went? And do you think Zach Kitley alleviated any of the pressure on his name with a 30-point output in the bowl game?
I generally try to take the optimistic stance on stuff, and I hate to be a wet blanket here. The final score is great, but you missed at least, I think, 2 that I remembered. I haven't done the rewatch yet. Like 2 really good opportunities when you had Cal pinned deep, and their punter stunk, by the way, and you inherit the ball like right at midfield and do nothing with it. You had a turnover that you turned it right back over 1 play later. You're playing the 125th ranked pass defense or something like that. Man, I'm not exaggerating. They're like 120 something in pass defense. Cal was. And you average 6 yards per attempt with allegedly now a fully healthy quarterback. That's at least what the coaches said. like 6 yards per attempt is not good against anybody. It's certainly not good against a dreadful pass defense. So like you see some individual performances like Koy Aiken, okay, awesome. And like other than the one pick from Morton, I think pretty efficient game. But no, like at scale, if we're averaging 6 yards per pass attempt next year, once that evens out and you're playing a not atrocious pass defense, and you don't win the turnover battle 4-1, or I guess it was 4-2 with the special teams won, that's going to catch back up to you. And how much better can Taj Brooks be next year than he was this year? 5.5 yards per carry, 1,500 plus yards, or whatever he wound up with. Like I'm not saying he's going to drop off a lot, but it's not going to get much better than that. Like that's about a reasonable ceiling you can expect from any Division I running back. So no, I still think a lot needs to improve. And that's like, had you asked me before the game, hey, if we win by 20, are you going to be feeling better or worse? I'd be like, oh yeah, probably a lot better. But I look at some of those statistical data points and like, no, 6 yards per attempt is not good against a team like Cal. And then like just zeroing down to individual sequences and play calls. On that sequence you're talking about, I'm fine with the fade to Tharp. He's 6'9". You had them kind of, I think, out of alignment, and so he's one-on-one with the corner. Sure.
And the guy mugged him.
Yeah. But then on second down, to run like a speed sweep with a receiver to throw it to your quarterback, there has to be 500 plays in the playbook better than that in that spot, especially with timeouts. Like you can just hand the ball off.
Barron got mugged too, by the way.
Sure, but like that is completely beside the point. It's still stupid.
I know.
Like if you're dancing in the middle of an intersection and a car runs a red light, they're in the wrong, but so are you, you know?
Yeah.
On
third down.
I think there are some gripes on, and I think before you got down there, before the play to Tharp, I think it was a running clock. And I remember saying call timeout to preserve as much and open up the playbook you could run or pass. They didn't. They let it run. And then I think we called a timeout when the clock was stopped after second down to dial up the crappy third down screen pass call.
Yep.
So it's like the order in which we use those timeouts, the play calls, it's all way off to me. And it costs you 4 points in a game that you won by 20. So like it's not that big of a deal. But I think it's symptomatic of some bigger problems that still seem to be persistent.
You're not making a move. Obviously, it's way too late for that. Even though some coaches are moving around, I saw Sean Bell, the Baylor coach, moving to Houston. That's a big get for Willie Fritz. I wonder if he'll coach quarterbacks or tight ends. But yeah, all the things I want to see, and you can't put it in 2 weeks. You're not going to change your offense in 2 weeks to get into the Independence Bowl, but there are things I want to see next year from this offense that if I don't see them, I just don't see a year 4 for Zach Kitley here at Texas Tech. And that's a more diverse running attack. It's scheming guys open. It's using the middle of the field. It's getting back into the mesh points that you just don't see very often. I did enjoy some wide receivers breaking tackles at the edge, which you hadn't done all season. Those throws to the sideline look a lot better when Xavier White shakes one guy and gets 6 yards instead of -2. But this offense is just not dynamic. And you see that with 6.5 yards per attempt.
I'll pivot to the positives here in a second, but I have one more gripe. And I've griped about it all season. But the momentum-killing decision to go tempo, always for like 0 or -1 yards, is so infuriating. When 2 or 3 idiots like me in the stands are watching it, it's like, okay, we just gas him for 20, 25 yards. It's like, here we go. Like in the blink of an eye, it's going to be 2nd and 10. And sure enough, we tempo up to the line, get stuffed, and now it's 2nd and 10. And I do not understand the impulse to do that over and over and over. Like even if you think it's a good strategy in theory, by the time you've run that all season long and it's worked for you about 5% of the time, at what point do you start questioning, maybe we shouldn't do that after every single chunk play? And I've said this too, go hurry up if you want to keep their personnel on the field and make sure they can't sub. but hurry up to the line and then like look back, get a sign, and run the offense based on the look we get. But instead, it's just like, let's do what everybody in the stadium knows we're going to do. Tempo, 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 right up the gut, stuffed every single time. And if we ever added a wrinkle off of that or got creative with it and made it work, I would shut up about it, but we just never do.
Like a play action?
Yeah, or like a hard count when they think you're going to go tempo. And we did get them with a hard count a couple times, not in those instances. It's like, hey, everybody thinks we're going tempo here, so let's give them a really hard count, try to draw them off sides, and you get a free play or whatever. I would love that. But we just don't ever add a wrinkle or build off of that at all. And it's, again, everybody in the stadium knows we're about to get 0 yards when we go tempo in that spot, and we do. And like, it makes you seem like a sidekick, but it's just history repeating itself over and over again.
It's even more frustrating when that goes all the way back to Cliff. Cliff did that so much, and I guess that's where Kitley learned, obviously. So it's the worst parts of Cliff have kind of reared their head here with the Kitley era. There are positives. I think you had some good plays. I thought Baron Morton had his best game of the year. In spots, I thought he missed a wide open receiver when he threw his interception. But there are things to build on in this offense, and I think it is as you up the talent pool there at the wide receiver position and on the offensive line and around Baron Morton, you get Tosh Brooks back. I do think there is still some kind of opportunity here. It's hard for me to see it after this season. It really is. Buddy, you see any positives last night offensively? Can you save us?
Yeah, I mean, in our preview episode, we had talked a little bit, or I mentioned Cal having one of the funniest stats in college football, which is that they were like second in forced turnovers, but also like second to last in committed turnovers in FCS. And I think last night you won the turnover battle. It was your second take 3 game of the season, with the first being against Tarleton State. So I think that's now 9 forced turnovers in your last 2 bowl games, because I believe you forced 5 against Ole Miss. And so I think that's definitely, something that I'm sure was talked about all week. I thought, the interception on offense was just a really bad read, quite frankly. And I think Zach Kitley, and I'm sure Baron Morton, knew that after looking at it. He had a wide open look on the post and instead threw that kind of go route, which was not there. And then obviously you had the fumble on the kick return, which was crazy. Like, the kicker completely wipes out on the opening kickoff, and he's the one to receive the fumble. Like, he recovers the fumble after he just absolutely bites it. I think I was watching basketball on my laptop, and I just turned football onto the TV because there was still like 2 minutes left in the basketball game, and I was like, man, like, should I put football on the laptop? Like, is it going to be this kind of game? Like, did we really just cough that one up? But ultimately, I think those two being your only turnovers of the game, and you had Cal's quarterback in absolute hell. I mean, he was lost last night. And obviously, you could look to the offensive coordinator change. Obviously, they're making a lot of adjustments on their end, dealing with their own portal stuff, but he looked lost. And if there's a defensive coordinator that I feel good about taking advantage of that, it's Tim DeRuyter, and just kind of his philosophy and pressuring the quarterback, making them uncomfortable, and then kind of allowing the secondary to clean up on those mistakes. And so I think doing what you did in the turnover margin, even though I think it only ended up at +2, that was still a big deal to force 4. And that gave you obviously more points than you would have had. And it gave you points that you needed, because your offense, wasn't always clicking, especially at the beginning of the game.
I was actually okay with Baron Morton missing that read and throwing to Dre McRae, because I had a player prop on McRae going over 29.5 yards and over 39.5 yards. And we needed one more catch in that spot. And so I actually liked that Morton was willing to give him a shot there. Didn't work out. Hit 2 out of 5 props for a whopping net gain of $5 on $100 wagered.
Nice.
Lost the $100 money line bet on Cal. Little emotional hedge. I was like, look, if I'm going to drive to Shreveport, sit out here in the cold and watch Tech lose, I'm going to make $138 doing it. Glad I didn't have to collect that. But yeah, I think Morton had some really good throws. And again, I'm taking all this with a grain of salt because Cal is so bad at defending the pass. But Aiken was covered on a couple of those, and he's just a really good receiver in terms of winning those 50-50 balls. And he and Morton seem to have really good chemistry with one another. So his emergence, I guess, since Baylor onward, so that would have been game 5 onward. He's really done pretty well for himself in what has otherwise been a pretty limited offensive passing attack. He's kind of been a bright spot. They clearly go to him on third down a lot. They love that back shoulder to Aiken, and he's really good at executing that. They threw a lot of slants to him on 3rd and 5-ish, and we seem to convert a bunch of those. So I'm excited for him to hopefully take the next step next year. And thought it was a good play call, good read, good throw when Morton went off his back foot to Tharp there. Great touch on that pass. And so, like, you see throws like that and you go, yeah, like, we seem to have talent here. The scheme can work. It's just you don't seem like execute it well enough for 80 plays over the course of a game. So you do see bright spots like that. I think Morton was sacked in the second quarter, and that was the only sack that we surrendered. And so maybe a bit of a patchwork offensive line with Monroe Mills obviously not playing. And again, I haven't done the rewatch, but I'm really curious to go back. And like, one of the individual players I want to keep an eye on is Ty Buchanan, a guy that might be thrust into one of those starting tackle spots next year, and just see how he did. It certainly didn't seem like he was just getting his ass kicked all night. If he was, we probably would have been seeing Morton under a lot more duress than he was. And, Taj didn't have his best game, like, statistically. I mean, he still put up, I think, 80-something, 90-something yards.
98.
98, okay. But Cal, coming in, we mentioned this on the preview episode, allowing fewer than 4 yards per carry all season, and that's in a pretty good Pac-12 with some good offenses there. So didn't necessarily expect Taj to go for like 6 yards per carry or anything like that. So anyway, I do think there are some positives, not trying to be all negative Nancy. And maybe when we zoom out a little bit and talk maybe season recap stuff, I think I have some more positives. I don't know if they'll move the needle for people that are just underwhelmed relative to maybe expectations coming into the season. But I think, like, compared to recent history, they should be viewed as some bright spots.
Taj Brooks had 5 receptions. You want to venture a guess on how many receiving yards he had?
0.
-3. -3. If you want to give the ball to Taj Brooks, turn around and hand it off. I used to always say that about Sardar Thompson.
We don't run
slow delay, look left, throw right to the sideline, throw to Taj Brooks never works.
We haven't run screens well for 2 years.
Yeah.
And I'm not even talking about the quick quote unquote screen to the sideline. I'm talking about when you're trying to, like, suck them into blitzing and then, like, hitting like Crabtree, Alex Rose were so good at that jailbreak screen. Cliff always schemed Justin Stockton open to just run straight down the sideline. He had such good straight line speed. We have not, like, tricked the defense into blitzing and then beat them with a screen, I don't think, in the last 2 years. And that's incredibly frustrating because plays like that can be so clutch on 3rd and 6 passing downs. Like, they think you're about to drop back. Yeah, we just can't execute a screen in a spot like that to save our lives, apparently. So that's something I hope that we can improve on next year.
Do you have some on that, Money?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I was looking at the box score as we started recording, and I think Taj's longest reception was the pass he caught on, like, I think it might have been the first play from scrimmage, where he just kind of ran the flat out of bounds, barely caught it, and I think it went for like 2 yards. And that's just kind of baffling to me, but yeah.
It's so much effort to get 2 yards. And, like, in my opinion, if you're running an offensive play that isn't likely to get more than 3, you're being way too conservative. Like, I would rather roll the dice, chucking it 40 yards downfield, like, one-on-one, and just seeing what happens. And if you get 0, fine, but that's better than getting 2 on a swing pass where you had no shot at getting any more than 2 yards.
There are 3 outcomes in a throw down the field. a catch, an interception, an incompletion. I guess there's 4, or a penalty. To the sideline, you can't get the penalty to the sideline. I don't know. It seems like there's way less opportunity or risk demand factor there.
I guess the last thing I'll say about the bowl game itself, I think anyway, maybe we'll get sidetracked later or I'll remember something. But 2 issues with your defense all year that are very much intertwined was havoc rate. So that's sacks and tackles for loss and forcing turnovers. We looked at all that. Every individual matchup we looked at, the other team was better at turning their opponent over than Texas Tech was. And I mean, you turn the ball over or you force turnovers. It almost always goes hand in hand with pressuring the quarterback. Like, yeah, you can force a fumble after the catch or against a running back, but it's usually when you force the quarterback to throw on the run, you get a tipped pass at the line. He's hit as he throws, a strip sack. And you saw that. Like, Mendoza put it on the turf. We didn't recover it. But all of his interceptions, I'm pretty sure, maybe 1, he was in the pocket. But the other 2, he was trying to roll out. And so I would love to see, like, if there's one thing this defense can do better next year to become like a really kind of total package, it's pressure the quarterback a lot more consistently. Because 1, that will result in sacks, tackles for loss, all that good stuff. But even better, it'll force some turnovers. And I don't know what the deal has been with these 2 bowl games. That's when you force like all your turnovers. And like Jackson Dart for Ole Miss was having a miserable time playing against us. And that was without Tyree Wilson. And then some guy that like nobody had heard of before, like we were all asking after his first, he stuffed a run play before he started sacking the quarterback. And we're all turning to each other like, who's 96? And we're like Googling the roster. Like, I think that's Amir Washington. It was like, is he a freshman? And he's a redshirt freshman. And so he comes out of nowhere and like he alone causes more havoc, forces more turnovers than you've pretty much had all year. And so anyway, I hope that's just kind of like our very first glimpse at him and just the defensive line unit as a whole kind of being better at that. Because, man, if this defense was so good at like forcing stops, forcing punts, all that, they were put in a bad spot in terms of field position a lot of times, and they bowed up and like gave you a shot to win most of the games you were playing. If you add a wrinkle to that where they're turning the opponent over, 2.5 times per game, that's pretty elite, and that's going to win you a lot of games. So I hope they continue building there in terms of being able to rush the passer and create havoc.
Some highlights defensively: Jacob Rodriguez, 7 tackles, 1 interception, 1 forced fumble, 1 pass defensed. He was electric. Ben Roberts, 5 tackles, a tackle and a half for loss. Baskerville had an interception. He'll be back. And then Amir Washington, 4 tackles for loss, 3 sacks. Duda Banks, a tackle and a half for loss, 1 sack. Charles Esters, tackles for loss. Adedire, tackles for loss, and a sack. Lots to enjoy there. Harvey Dyson even had a half a sack and a half tackle for loss. So,
off the top of the dome, do y'all know who led Texas Tech in tackles for loss this year and how many tackles for loss he had?
No idea. Let's say Jalen Hutchings, 7.
It's Jalen Hutchings, and it was either 7 or 7.5. I'd have to go double check. Of course, he missed a couple games. And then you just talked about it. Amir Washington with 3 sacks in 1 game is the co-leader in sacks for the entire team. Like, that is not good.
Tie for third.
Oh, I thought you said he was co-leader. Okay.
Yeah, there was a 4, a 3.5, a couple 3.5s, and then a bunch of 3s.
I mean, that's not good.
No.
And so it's not just a matter of like your eyes deceiving you or the stats saying one thing. Like the individual player stats, the team stats all kind of back up what we saw, which is that you didn't create enough pressure, and that resulted in not turning the other team over. And so, yeah, I'm thrilled to see guys like Duda Banks, who's going to be a starter next year on the interior D-line when you lose a guy like Hutchings, showing a lot of promise. Like, he's had some TFLs this year when given the shot, and if you can kind of extrapolate that over a full 12-game sample size, it kind of makes you excited at what he might produce next year.
Cameron Valdez passed Tyler Shuck in rushing attempts last night.
Did he really?
Yeah.
I thought that was I thought the nail was in that coffin when he hit the portal. I was like, we're really gonna have a quarterback with a broken leg from September be our second leading ball carrier.
Cameron Valdez, 52 attempts. Tyler Shuck, 48 attempts. Baron Morton, 46 attempts. Interesting. All right, let's move on here. Let's go to the portal. You mentioned Cameron Valdez in the portal, but still playing. Fungi as well. Loic Fungi. If he comes back, some people are really going to have to learn how to spell that guy's name. I guess he hasn't had enough catches for people to catch on, but maybe we do a spelling test for last names in the fall if he's back. Let's see. You pick up Josh Kelly from Washington State. Good tape, good stats. You lose Jacoby Jackson after the bowl game. He enters the portal. But you have two guards in from the portal and Caleb Rogers allegedly moving inside, slotting above Jacoby Jackson in the depth chart, allegedly. So Jacoby Jackson, writings on the wall. Landon Peterson going to North Texas. I wouldn't be surprised to see Jacoby Jackson join him there. But what are your thoughts on Josh Kelly?
I think when he gets to West Texas, he's going to love the barbecue.
What would you say is your favorite barbecue in West Texas?
I would send him out to Rahino Barbecue. I don't know where he's at Fresno State and then Washington State. Highly doubt he's had any barbecue that stacks up to Rahino Barbecue. It is the best barbecue in West Texas, and it's all West Texas, so therefore the best barbecue in the world. They don't miss the brisket, ribs, turkey, burgers. It's all really, really good. Give them a follow on social at Rahino BBQ to see special menu items, special offers, and order ahead online at RahinoBBQ.com to make sure your food is there when you arrive. They do run out because the lines get long. People want good barbecue. Don't let that happen to you. Order ahead. You can catch them out in Olton or going all across West Texas in the mobile food truck. Shout out to Rahino Barbecue. Josh Kelly, I'm excited about him because with the context that you're playing with an injured quarterback pretty much all year, the production was very bad across the board in the wide receiver room, and you needed some juice. And losing a full-time starter like Jerron Bradley, losing a guy who played for you for 4 years, started for 3 of those in Miles Price, that's a lot of snaps, a lot of experience to make up for. And I think Josh Kelly's exactly what the doctor ordered. I want to pull up a tidbit to make sure I get it right, but his production versus your two leading receivers this year, which were Xavier White and Jerron Bradley going into the bowl game. Let me look here. So Josh Kelly had 923 yards this past season. Bradley and White before the bowl game, 926. So basically dead even. Josh Kelly did it on 9 fewer catches. He had 61. The other two combined for 70. And Josh Kelly did it on 100 fewer snaps that he was on the field. He was on the field 535 snaps. Those other two were on the field for 634 snaps. So you have one guy occupying space on the field instead of two, and he's outproducing them despite playing fewer snaps and being one guy instead of two. So very experienced player. This will be his 5th year in college. He's been incredibly productive. I'm just guessing here. I think he had injury issues in 2022 that kept him from playing all year, but full seasons in 2021 and 2023. In those 2 years combined, he had 113 catches, 1,700 yards, 11 TDs, and for his career, he averages a little over 15 yards per catch. He didn't have anybody that explosive this year. So as long as we can keep our quarterback healthy and, scheme him open and everything, I think he's a player that has proven he can produce at this level and is a piece you desperately needed, because without him, like, you're looking at, I guess, playing a bunch of redshirt freshman types that weren't good enough or deemed worthy enough to get playing time over a guy who's in the portal right now during the bowl game. So huge ad at wide receiver there, in my opinion.
He's allegedly, according to what is it, football sportsreference.com, this is your 6.
Okay, even better.
In 2019. So red shirt in 19, you get the free 2020. And then played 2 full seasons and it looked like a 6-game season there in the middle between. But he played 4 years at Fresno State, 1 year at Washington State, and now a 6th at Texas Tech. Seemed pretty coveted in the portal. So, yeah, come on down, Josh Kelly. We'll have you. It'll be interesting to see who lines up as starters coming out of next year. But I think you have, with Brady Boyd, Coy Aiken, Jordan Brown, Dre McCray, Micah Hudson, and Josh Kelly, a formidable group.
I'm really curious.
Highly electric, but formidable.
I'm really curious where the chips fall in terms of who plays which receiver spot. Josh Kelly used almost exclusively on the outside at Washington State. Same with Coy Aiken, one of your kind of returning starters or at least guys from the 2 deep. And that's where Micah Hudson played in high school. I think that's sort of what he projected at the next level. But there's only 2 outside receiver spots. So somebody's either going to have to move inside or be a backup. And that's not even getting into Caleb Douglas, a transfer from Florida, who I think is also built like an outside receiver. So if he comes in and impresses in the spring, I don't know, maybe we see Micah Hudson playing in the slot. Brady Boyd and Dre McCray seem like they get moved around almost everywhere. So I think those are guys you can sort of flex in as backups or rotational pieces that can play a variety of positions. But anyway, that's something to monitor. Either Josh Kelly is going to move to the slot for the first time in his career, or something's got to give there because you've got a lot of guys that have played almost exclusively on the outside, and you've only got 2 spots on the field for that. So, and you've got to replace Miles Price, who played exclusively in the slot.
What's crazy is if you look at the Kitley offense and then going back to the Kingsbury offense, which just kind of derives from that slot receiver position, is the best, most prolific position on the field. You just haven't really gotten it going with Jarrett Stearns, back to Kiki QT, Jakeem Grant. You really want to get that guy going. You haven't done it yet. Maybe Josh Kelly is the guy. Let's see. Any other portal thoughts? Any other portal happenings I missed? Any guys y'all are looking at? Any guys enter that I didn't say? It all runs together what we talked about last time.
I don't think we talked about Davion Carter, the guard from Memphis, last episode. We had Vinny Scurry in from Toledo, but you had another interior offensive lineman in Carter, seemingly equally thought of in terms of PFF grade, recruiting rankings. 23 career starts under his belt. That's good. You're replacing these really old dudes in Dennis Wilburn, Rusty Stats, Cole Spencer. Pretty elite. Both him and Scurry graded out much better in terms of pass blocking on PFF. Davion Carter, if I remember right, allowed 1 sack on something like 520 dropbacks this year at Memphis. So it's a step up in competition for sure, but I don't think you can turn your nose up at a guy that was that good at the American level. Especially when it seems like Taj I'm sure Taj would love to get to the second level without having to break tackles, but it doesn't seem like he needs an elite run blocking offensive line in order to do damage. And conversely, one of your biggest issues on offense for several years now is keeping your quarterbacks healthy. So if you force me, I would love an all-world lineman who could do both, but if you're forcing me to lean one way, would I rather have a pass protector versus a run blocker? Probably leaning toward pass protection being more important in this offense in this moment. So I really like that ad as well. And like you said, Jacoby Jackson out the door, probably because both of those 2 guys, Scurry and Carter, are likely to start. I mean, you never know what can happen in the spring, but I think they're brought in to kind of be full-time starters at that guard spot.
We heard this last bowl season, but Caleb Rogers might play center. I don't know if I love that. I've never seen him play center. Academically, student of the game, can he do it? I don't know. He seems like a vocal guy. Can he make all the calls there in the middle of the line? We'll see if he plays center next year. If not, if it's Sheridan Wilson or one of those other guys that have been named, if it's Caden Carr, Nick Fattig, whoever it is, somebody's playing center next year. And if they are, then Caleb Rogers probably plays right tackle again. And better or worse, it's something he's done for a while, either left or right tackle. We know he can do it to a certain degree, and I thought at times he looks pretty good at right tackle this year. So we'll see what happens there. I don't know if you're getting a whole lot better at the offensive line, but you're certainly not getting worse with these transfers in my opinion. Is that all football wise? Anything else? Did you see the Texas fans incredibly upset that Texas Tech did a ring around the Rosie tush push?
To be fair, I didn't love that either. But I don't know why Texas fans care.
Why not? Why didn't you love that?
I think it looks really stupid.
You said you haven't watched the playback yet. The TV announcers were baffled at what was going on. They thought Mason Tharp came out and took the snap. They couldn't see Baron Morton in front of him. He thought it was on first down. And then he was like, oh, wait, it's 3rd and inches. He had no clue what was going on. Of course, he didn't have a clue what was going on most of the game.
The Chiefs ran that play in a Super Bowl, right?
It was maybe in the playoffs or in a stretch run last year, but it wasn't a tush push. It was some other play off the merry-go-round action.
So I'm like, do these announcers not watch football?
Yeah, no, probably not.
That'd be like seeing the Philly special for the first time in the Independence Bowl and being like, oh, like where did they draw that up from? It's like, yeah, people have been doing this. And I think a couple have already imitated the Chiefs on that. Like that's your first time seeing that. Just makes me think, especially for a guy, a professional color commentary guy or TV analyst, like you should probably see enough football to know that has been run before and like not be that confused by it.
He didn't know ball. They were baffled most of the game.
That's sad.
You'll enjoy that on the rewatch.
Yeah.
It didn't bother me. The merry-go-round thing didn't bother me. It didn't catch him off guard, but I liked the tush push. I like getting behind him and pushing on. I thought Teeter and Mason Tharp really did their jobs. I don't think Baylor Cup knew what he was doing. He might have been dizzy from the merry-go-round, but you got him in there. Gunter ran around the ring versus Canadian in the state semifinal. Gunter. How do you say that?
I think there's a silent H. I think it's Gunther.
Is it?
No.
Is that like sexy? Hey, congratulations to all the Texas high school football champions. If not, I think we can move on to a mailbag. Yeah. Kyle, if you were offended by a ring around the Rosie and wanted to harass somebody online and then got called out for it, what would you do?
We need to put a stop to this. So I don't know if I can announce litigation on the show, but I would definitely call Barnett, Howard, and Williams to try to sue the NCAA to implement a rule that you cannot run the ring around the Rosie in college football. Kind of doubt that's in their wheelhouse, but Barnett, Howard, and Williams does do criminal defense, Title IX student litigation. They can help you out in a lot of different matters. They hope you never need them, but should you need a good attorney, you have somebody solid in your corner if you do. BHWLawFirm.com if you want to learn more. All three partners are double Texas Tech grads, so you know you're getting the very best and brightest. BHWLawFirm.com for all your suing to change the rules of college football needs. Good luck.
Chip Kelly might open some litigation on what he wants to do in college football. Did you see those clips from his press conference?
I just saw that he wanted a commissioner, apparently.
Yeah, he wants to go big 64 and little 64 and have 132 teams and he wants to collectively bargain where everybody in the big 64 has the same TV payout and there's no Big Ten money, SEC money. It's just all college football money. He wants to have a big NFL. And to that I say good luck. Good luck, Chip. All right, let's do a mailbag.
You've got mail.
Mail time.
The mail's here. Come on. I found these in my mailbag.
Well, it's time to reach into the old mailbag here.
Enjoy reading the fan mail. Don't read it all at once.
Any mail for me? You don't have a Tic Tac, do you? Did I get any mail?
No. Why not, honey?
All right. One of the small problems with the portal is that guys have to basically waive their right to do any postseason games, practices, etc. with their current team. Seems unfair to a degree. Would you like to see some kind of amendment change that would grant them to be able to play with their current teams during bowls? Well, as we saw this weekend, some teams do allow you to play. That's a personal preference with the coaches.
Yeah, I think that's dumb.
How many years until Andrew Searles is the athletic director at Texas Tech?
Is Kansas State's athletic director caught up in all the nonsense over there?
Yes.
Are they going to bring Kirby home?
I think he's, his kids are graduating high school and he's an empty nester. He has the opportunity to leave if he wants to.
If Kansas State does that, it could be 6
What's
months.
the buyout? What's the buyout situation? 6 months. He's the athletic director in waiting.
Well, if they fire if KSU fires their guy and they hire Kirby, then
What's the buyout situation with a contract like that? It's not like college coaching, is it?
they'd have to owe us $50 million.
Yeah.
By this point, haven't we extended Kirby through like 2036 or something?
He's got a rolling contract, yeah.
And he's like top 5 or 10 paid. Hopefully, there's a good buyout in there if Kansas State wants him. Like, yeah, pay us $20 million, you can have him.
What's the? Sounds like you're trying to get rid of him.
Well, if they want to pay us $20 million,
What's the? What's the level of? What am I trying to say? How much do they like Jerome Tang? Because it's Jerome Tang versus the administration right now. Because I feel like the AD kind of laid down flat. Naquan Tomlin's already playing at Memphis, by the way.
I don't think there's an AD in the country. Maybe like Joe Castiglione. I don't think there's an AD in the country that is more popular on campus and with the fan base than like a successful coach of a football, basketball team.
So if Kansas State finishes top 4, gets another Elite 8 run, they're firing the university president to keep Jerome Tang.
I mean, even if they don't, I feel like the fan base is already on his side, and they're like, well, the only reason we suck at basketball this year, if they do wind up sucking, is because the administration tied his hands. Like, you remember, this is a way different situation, obviously, and like Joe Pa had been there for 60 years. But do you remember like the student riots and protests on campus when they first fired Joe Pa?
Oh, yeah.
It wouldn't be like that, but I think the coach always wins the PR battle in that scenario.
And then Joe Pa died. Penn State.
Yeah.
That was a wild time. The Sandusky trials.
Yeah.
And then the NCAA way overreached. Took a bunch of wins away. It's for another time. The ACC and SEC only play 8 conference games. Do you look at the extra conference game for the Big 12 as a collective guaranteed 8 extra losses next year? Or as an 8 collective guaranteed wins? In most cases, you're trading a game like Kansas or West Virginia for Maine at home. It's kind of an existential question there.
What exactly is the question? Like, do I prefer a 9-game conference schedule versus 8?
Yeah, I guess.
Yeah, I prefer 9.
But I don't know. Theoretically, are you glass half empty or glass half full that the 9th conference game guarantees a conference loss to half the conference because it's a conference game. You don't theoretically get a win because you play an FCS opponent in November.
No, I don't think that's good for anybody.
Yeah. Money, do you have any thoughts there?
That question was kind of like those TikToks where somebody will just like walk up to somebody in public and just start mumbling things, and they try to see what the other person does. I understood next to none of that. That was very confusing to me. But I am a fan of 9 conference games. I'm a fan of the NFL going to 17 over 16 games. I don't like ties or even records. Give me a leg up or a leg down either way.
Here's something to stew on. The Big 12, since it went to the round robin, in conference play total, all teams combined record of 500. We've never gone better than 500 against ourselves when you take all the teams.
Okay.
Neither has the Pac-12 or the ACC or the I don't. That's what I don't get about everybody's 500 when you total up the final conference records.
With 9 games, though, you can't be 500.
No, all the teams combined are 500 against each other in conference play.
Gotcha.
Whether Georgia goes 8-0 or 9-0, the SEC, when you total up all of their wins and losses in conference play, is 500.
But in the Big 12, you have an odd number of games.
Doesn't matter. You want to check the math? How could you have anything other than 50-50 exactly in conference only? One team wins and one team loses every single game.
I guess because there's 10 teams, there's 90 games total, so that'd be an even number. Be 45 and 45.
It'd be 180 because it's like Kansas State goes 1-0, Texas Tech goes 0-1. There's 2 games in the record book after 1 game was played.
Right. Okay.
But you have to finish. It's like half of people are below average. What are we going to do to help them? Every conference finishes 500.
In the spirit of the question, I
don't understand the spirit of the question.
I look at it as an 8 collective guaranteed wins. Yeah. Is it true that Kyle is using the bowl game as a front to see where Tim Brando was born? Did you go look at the Tim Brando childhood house?
No, does he have a monument in Shreveport?
I don't know. Like, you can drive around and see where somebody grew up. I did the Breaking Bad tour in Albuquerque one time.
I didn't see the Tim Brando monument, but I'll tell you, people from Shreveport, I've never seen a people group less proud to be from where they're from than Shreveport, Louisianans. Like, I would get in an Uber and you can tell from the accent they're from Shreveport. It's like, hey, you from Shreveport? They're like, yeah, unfortunately. And I was like, oh, you don't like it here? And they're like, would you want to live here? And I was like, I don't know. I've been here for 1 day. But they're not fans of their own place. I've never really seen that before.
You get a little bit of that in Lubbock, but not as much now as maybe 15 years ago. A little self-pride here lately. Scenario. I don't know why y'all make me read these long questions. I can't read out loud. The popcorn reading when I was in 2nd grade tormented me for the rest of my life. If you made a mistake in reading, they would all boo you and you'd have to go to the next person. I still have anxiety from that. Scenario, : the defense jumps off sides on 1st and 10. You gain 8 yards on the free play. Do you decline the penalty and keep it at 2nd and 2, or do you accept the penalty and go with 1st and 5? Would 2nd and 1 or 2nd and 3 change your decision?
If a train leaves Shreveport at kickoff, I would go 2nd and 2.
Where are you on the field?
Well, honestly, what I would do, there's a spreadsheet that answers how often teams convert 2nd and 2, how often they get a first down in that sequence of downs, how often they get a first down on 1st and 5. So I would honestly probably just look at that and do what the math says, aka analytics.
I'm going with more net yards pretty much every time. But I do think a qualm that I have, and something that really bugs me about free plays, we saw it in the Cal game even, is when you launch the pass out of bounds on a free play, there's no incentive to throwing the ball out of bounds when you know the play is going to come back. Throw it 20 yards, try and hit your guy, throw it up. If it gets picked, whatever, it's coming back. If it's a false start, they're going to blow the play dead. Maybe you have an illegal shift, but I mean, just throw it in bounds. See what happens.
Yeah, Barron got away with 1 interception down the field on a free play. That's a better outcome because that kills the defensive spirit. If you don't see the flag and you get a pick and run it back 60 yards, and then you're like, oh damn, nothing's going right.
I can't believe how many fans like at the game live don't really understand the concept of a free play. Because like I'm watching that and I'm like, send it deep, who cares? And then it gets picked off and fans are like, oh no. And I was like, guys, like doesn't matter. None of this matters. And I'm like pointing, I'm like, it's coming back. It's going. And they're like so relieved when the ref announces what happened. I'm like, did y'all not see him jump offside? Like we're clearly just launching it deep because we have nothing to lose. But like, I guess people miss that. And I'm sure I have before too. But
TV guys missed it a couple times.
It's brutal.
It's like, come on, guys.
Like this, like if you watch football, if
free
you're
play.
a color commentary guy, like you know this concept.
Yeah.
Defense jumps off sides, offense, Hail Mary, like whatever. Yeah. I can't believe they missed that.
Over under 7.5 regular season wins next year. I'm assuming this is for the Texas Tech football team. I would push at 7, so I guess I would take the under.
Over.
Do you agree with McCaslin's decision to play the long game and redshirt Drew Steph? Is it Steph or Steffi?
I think it's Steph.
It was Steffi until he got here, and now I keep hearing Steph. Supposedly one of the best shooters in his class, supposedly. What are the chances that Steph is a Kansas Jayhawk when he's a redshirt senior? I would say pretty low.
Are we still doing the 3-point shooting thing? Like the past 5 games, this is one of the best offenses in the country by any metric. I mean, it's a 3-game sample size that threw this thing for a loop, and they have found their footing. They've made the right adjustments. This team is loaded at guard. Loaded. Like, is he going to get minutes over Joe Toussaint? No. Is he going to get minutes over Pop Isaacs? No. I mean, you have a guy in Demarion Williams who's not even playing, and he's played 4 seasons at least of college basketball at this point. Like, this is very much like what I remember whenever McCaslin first got hired, and I was really digging through kind of the way that he's built programs. It is very much a long-term outlook on things. He is going to do things his way. It's going to feel counterintuitive at times to what other programs are doing, but he is very much a believer in getting his guys, developing them, and then maximizing them, once they've learned his scheme and they can play within his system. So, yeah, I absolutely agree with it. He obviously sees something in practice that we don't. If Drew Steph was one of the best shooters in the country, I assure you he would be playing. And that's not to say that he's bad. It's just to say, look, if you can use a red shirt on a guy, Grant McCaslin's going to do it because that's his outlook. And quite frankly, that's what makes the most sense with this roster.
I mean, right now, you alluded to it, since the Michigan game, which is a 5-game sample size now, I think we're shooting 39.7% from 3. And so, like, if that's your main contribution to make up for, like, any deficiencies on defense or rebounding, you probably have to be shooting, like, 42% from 3 to move the needle. And like you said, if you can shoot 42% from 3, you would have been on the court already. And that's only 5 games. Like, it'll probably even back out a little bit. But, yeah, like, that's not where you need help right now. And unless he grows to 7 feet tall or you're confident he can go grab, like, 10 boards, it's probably better to just redshirt and develop him.
Would last year's team only beat Cal by 6?
I don't care. Say whatever you want. Pass the Kool-Aid.
Would Rob drive to AT&T Stadium for Lubbock area high school making the state championship? I would go watch Estacado play in a state championship. I would go watch Lubbock High play in a state championship. Friendship, Cooper, probably not. Coronado, Monterey, probably not. Unless I was calling the game, yes, absolutely, I would go. I would like to go watch a couple of days of state championships just with no dog in the fight. There were 33,000 at the DeSoto game, I believe, setting some records here. There was 12,000 at the 1A game, I think. Like the whole town came. So that would be really fun.
You said 33,000 for DeSoto?
I think so, yeah.
Dang, so like right up there with the Independence Bowl, it sounds like.
Yes.
I couldn't believe they tried to announce that in the stadium. Like everybody like looked around like there's not 33,000 people here.
Do you want to talk about targeting in college football and how you would change the rule, or do you want to skip that one?
I think I've said it before. I'll take 3 seconds. I think there should be 2 levels of targeting, one for kind of like minor, perhaps incidental infractions, maybe make that a 5 or 10 yard penalty, no ejection. And then like an egregious when a player actually looks like he's launching with malicious intent, 15 yards, ejection, like make it kind of like a flagrant 1, flagrant 2 sort of situation.
Yeah, agreed.
Because I do think there are instances, and we've all seen it, a guy gets ejected and we're like, what are we doing here? There's no reason why that should be an ejection. And so I would like to take that part out of the game.
This is an interesting question. Is it wrong to re-gift? If not, is there a minimum period of years before re-gifting? If the intended recipient of said gift doesn't know it's a re-gift, you could do it the next day. If somebody gives me a candle and I know that person B would love this candle and I'm going to a Christmas party at their house tomorrow, I'm taking the candle. Like, what's the harm there?
Yeah, I don't see how the timeline really impacts things. I do think there are probably certain people in your life you shouldn't re-gift to. Like,
well, probably, yeah.
Like if it's your wife,
yeah,
I would probably say you'd be better served putting enough thought into that to get like an original gift. But if it's like, hey, office party, white elephant, sure, like re-gift it. Like, where exactly do you draw the line on that? Like, how close friends are we? Are we re-gifting kind of friends, or do they get a legit gift? That's for you to decide. But I think everybody should have at least like 3 or 4 people in their life that are perhaps above being re-gifted something.
But if someone gifted you something, let's say, that is right up your dad's alley of expertise, and you're like, okay, my dad would really enjoy this, what's the harm in re-gifting that?
Yeah, I think in a special circumstance like that, it's fine. Or you could go get like that same gift or same type of gift. Like if it's a fishing rod and your dad loves fishing, you'd be like, well, that's a good idea. I'll go get him a different fishing rod like that I pick out. But, I don't know.
Sure. Is gift giving your love language?
No, I usually actually struggle to come up with good gift ideas. I do enjoy it when I feel like I, think of something good and execute. But I have a hard time doing that.
It would actually surprise me if you knew your love language. Have you taken the quiz or read the book?
Do
you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I can't remember all of them.
Okay.
We don't have to get into it, right?
Words of affirmation, physical touch, gift giving. Money, what would you think about a regift? If I give you a regift that you didn't know was a regift, would you be offended?
Not at all. I think it depends on if there's any sentimental value to the item. Like if somebody gives me like something that they clearly like thought of and envisioned that I would like, I don't think I would let go of it. In fact, like I've held on to gifts before that I've never used because somebody like really thought it was a good gift for me, but I just did not have any use for it. But I'm like, man, I can't let go of this. Like this person thought of me. That was really nice. I gotta hold on to this. But if you're like giving me socks, like those things are going to the office. I'm sorry. Like that's gonna be a really good present for my boss. Like he's gonna love fuzzy socks.
Rob, you keep on adding the context of like if they don't know it's a regift, they shouldn't know. Like you can't announce that when you're giving to like, hey, somebody gave this to me at the office and I think it sucks, so here you go. Like,
well, that would be like if you got a gift and then the next Christmas you gave it to your wife and she's like, I remember you getting this.
Oh yeah, that's
what I was talking about.
That's gauche. Ryan says words of affirmation are his love language. So comment below your love language if you feel so inclined.
Ryan, I appreciate you as a listener. You're always great at giving feedback on our various shows. There you go. Let's see. How awesome is that home playoff game in Lubbock going to be 1 year from now?
Pass the Kool-Aid, baby.
Over under 1.5 kickoff return touchdowns for Dre McCray next season.
Under.
Under. Yeah, that's hard to do.
You got one. Describe your perfect first Adidas uniform. Black helmets, no stripes, red double T, 3D or not. Black uniform, red pants. White uniform, black pants.
Old school double T. I think you should have one helmet and one helmet only, a black helmet.
No stripes.
No red, no white. Tops, you should have black, red, white. Bottoms, you should have black, red, white, gray. If you want to do that Zach Thomas black, gray combo. That's it. Other than that, just like a conventional 3-stripe look. I don't need any fancy Oregon crap, reflective nonsense, stupid fonts.
Chevrons.
No chevrons. Don't need any of that. Just look at what we wore in the 90s and do that.
Honestly, the Kansas uniform from this year in red and black.
Yeah. Got no problem with that.
Start, bench, cut, beer, draft, can, bottle. I am a can man on the go. I would prefer a draft to a bottle. So I would say can, draft, bottle.
Starting draft, benching can, cutting bottle.
So another part of the Shreveport experience was going to a bar, asking for draft beer, and it being poured into a plastic cup. That was a first. I've had draft beer in a plastic cup, usually on like a golf course or at a tailgate, not in an establishment.
A kegger.
Yeah, so like that sort of tainted for me, like, are we talking in an ice cold mug here or in a plastic cup? But I'll start bottle, bench draft under like, pretty normal circumstances and then cut cans, but I still like cans.
One of the picadors, the most recent picador of the week, will ask for a glass if he's delivered a beer in a bottle at a table. And I thought that was interesting the first time I saw him do that. But hey, if you like a draft, you like a draft. Create your own draft.
Sorry. I took a tour of the Molson Coors facility here in Fort Worth.
Nice.
Miller Lite was actually like invented and first brewed in Fort Worth back in the 70s, I think.
More you know.
And they make more cans than bottles. They said it was like 65 to 75% cans. So about 2-to-1 cans to bottles, it sounds like, out there in the world.
If I was being picky, I would say aluminum bottle. That's my all-time favorite.
Yeah, that helps keep it cold for sure.
Yeah. 3 straight bowl wins by 17-plus points versus Power 5 opponents. How do you feel?
Pass the Kool-Aid. I know that like everybody's heart is saying one thing and their minds are saying they're like, fool me once, fool me, can't get fooled again, strike 3. But I just don't want to live that way. Like, we're 9 months out, hype me up. I'm not going to hedge and be like, well, we said that last year. We're probably going to go 5-7. No. I totally understand if you want to live that way, if it's going to help you approach next football season in the right frame of mind, all good. But I'm not going to live my life that way.
I'm hedging. Thoughts on the bowl trophy. I need the Eagle screech drop in there. Thoughts on the bowl trophy. What's your favorite bowl trophy? I don't know that I could tell you any other bowl trophies.
Same reaction as you. I'd never seen the Independence Bowl trophy before. or if I had, I didn't remember it. I was impressed by just the sheer mass of that trophy. I really like the old crystal ball. I thought that was a great national championship trophy. I think it's better than the tube or whatever the heck they give you now.
Yeah.
So I'd bring back the crystal ball in terms of like all-time trophies.
I like the Duke's Mayo thing.
Yes.
That always seems to be a lot of fun.
Oh, the French fry, the Idaho Potato Bowl where they dump French. That's not really a trophy when they dump French fries on the coach. Would you take a vat of mayonnaise if you won a bowl game? If you're the head coach.
Depends on the bowl game, like the Duke's Mayo Bowl.
Yeah, well, no, it's not some random bowl. It's the Mayo Bowl. Yeah.
I mean, if I was head coach, like you have to, but
yeah.
I like the Orange Bowl, like large trophy with actual oranges in it. I think that's cool.
Yeah, the Rose Bowl, they pass out roses. Do you still feel that Baron Morton's ceiling is really high?
I think so. I mean, you just see it in certain instances, but again, can that be done 85 plays at a time every week? And it's so hard to say too. Like if he was throwing with a sprained shoulder all year, like how much can you take away from that? It's like the fan in us wants to say, well, he was good in these spots despite the injury, so we're only going to take the good and all the bad is excused because of the shoulder. But like a shoulder doesn't cause you to miss a read or something like that. So I don't know. I think he's probably among the 3 most important individual players for next year's team with how good you seem to look at all the other position groups on offense. Like if you can't get good quarterback play, how much is all that going to matter? And vice versa. If you can get really good quarterback play, that could be a unit without much weakness. So I guess we'll find out, but I think that's probably like maybe the biggest question. Probably rushing the passer and quarterback play next year.
Yeah, I think I want to see him behind a better offensive line, or at least an offensive line that's better suited to protect the pass. I want to see him fully healthy, or at least somewhat healthy for the majority of the season. And then part of getting a guy to hit their ceiling, or at least get somewhere close to it, is scheming around it. And he is not going to hit his ceiling throwing smoke screens and slants 30 times a game. That's just, it doesn't feel like what I saw from his tape in high school. Like, this guy's not a game manager. This is a guy that can let it fly. And so keep him healthy, scheme around it, get him some weapons that can create some separation on the outside. And then that's how I think you take a step towards that. But I think he's got some work to do. Like, he still has a couple of those reads every season where he just kind of misses it. But that's not to say that I don't think that could be corrected with film and just staying healthy and being better protected.
And reps.
Oh, yeah.
He didn't practice all year. He was just playing in games once a week. Give him the spring as the starting quarterback with the ones, and I think he'll be better. And, hey, rip it. Let him rip it. That is Baron Morton, ripping it.
That throw to Eakin in the end zone might have been the best passing play of the season. Unless I'm missing like a deep pass somewhere, but
UCF to Dre McCray, not the long touchdown, but where he threw it outside the numbers and Dre McCray adjusted and kind of slid under it. That was a really good throw. And the Miles Price touchdown against Houston, maybe.
just throw a couple more passes that you probably shouldn't. That's what I want to see.
Yeah. Over under, how soon was there some kind of alcoholic beverage in Morton's MVP trophy? What alcohol was it? I feel like Barron mixes in a beer too, but I feel like he gets a little saucy sometimes. I don't know. Seems like he could put him back. Is the MLS afraid of the Lubbock Matadors since the Tiger League backed out of the U.S. Open Cup? Did you see the Matadors are in the Open Cup? It's a cross-league tournament. Seems pretty cool.
Yeah, I think MLS is definitely afraid to let us in because they know we would run that thing.
Could you imagine Inter Miami coming to Lubbock with Messi playing at the the Lubbock High School stadium.
Let me ask you a different question. Can you imagine if the Mozos grew to like 10,000 strong and they had like a whole corner of a much bigger stadium?
Oh yeah.
That'd be fun.
I'm loving the Renaissance. Are you? Renaissance.
Oh. He looks really confident when he shoots from three, and it usually looks really smooth. I don't know if he'll shoot 60% all year. I kind of think maybe that'll come down just a hair. But yeah, he's a huge piece for you right now, especially with kind of just the approach we're taking, putting up a lot of threes. You're going to need to make a good number of those to keep generating offense and remain competitive in some of these games. And he's certainly doing more than his part at this point right now. So, yeah, sign me up for the Renaissance.
He has 0 turnovers this year.
Wow.
0. And like
That's
8
awesome.
fouls. Like, so even if you look beyond what he's doing behind the arc, which is impressive, he's playing really good defense right now. Really, really good defense right now. I think he had like 5 stocks against Vanderbilt, which is steals and blocks. And then just not turning the ball over whatsoever and not getting himself in foul trouble. It's a really good player.
In relative terms, where does this rank in the most fun Tech Athletic days with a 20-point win over a Power 5 opponent in both football and hoops? Let's see. February 19th, 2021. You played and won a baseball game after you beat Texas in a basketball game. That was fun. You might have lost that baseball game, actually. I think you walked off Michigan the night before. I guess if you're going 2 sports, though, this is probably up there. One of the next questions is start, bench, cut trophies: Independence Bowl, Texas Bowl, Liberty Bowl. I would cut the Independence Bowl trophy. Not as a trophy, but as a game. I thought the Liberty Bowl was the most important because you were coming out of the bowl drought, and it was Cumbie versus Leach. Then I would say last year's was a bigger bowl than this year. So of the 3 bowls, this one probably mattered the least.
I thought the question was about like trophy design, so I'm going to answer it that way.
I'm sure it was, but I answered it differently.
I'll start Independence Bowl trophy, bench Liberty Bowl / Liberty Bell trophy, and cut. I don't remember the Texas Bowl trophy. I remember Joey and Chuck wearing cowboy hats and the money falling down because Tax Act was the sponsor, but I don't remember the trophy itself.
Let's see.
Certainly wasn't as memorable as a giant bald eagle or a Liberty Bell. So
it's kind of a crystal-shaped, flat football-esque shape.
Yeah,
with the Texas Bowl logo in the middle.
Cut.
It's kind of a generic trophy. Would you cut Kadarius Toney? That's in the questions.
Yes.
Do you have a fun day you remember in Tech Athletics where maybe two things happened in one day?
No, this is not the question you asked, but the spring of 2019, you had a run to Omaha, a men's natty and outdoor track, and the Final Four run.
Yeah, that's
obviously not on the same day or even in the same month, but I remember that stretch of, I think that was all within about 2 months, maybe a little more by the time he got to Omaha. And that was pretty incredible to see like 3 sports finish their seasons, 3 different sports finish their seasons in the same semester. That far, advanced toward the championship was pretty incredible.
If we're going 24-hour window, it would be walking off Michigan and then playing Texas, because I watched it at Texas Live. That was pretty fun with all the baseball fans there. What are your 2 favorite Under Armour Tech uniforms you'll miss?
The first, old school double T throwback that you did in 2014 against Arkansas, and then I guess the away game version of that same throwback.
Yeah.
Kind of like the white, red, whites, the 70s era, but I don't like those as much as the black helmets.
With the stars on the helmet.
Yeah.
And I'm sure Adidas can replicate those just as well. Did we wear the throwback this year?
Tarleton State.
Tarleton State.
I like those a lot.
Those are nice.
Remember, yeah.
The Donnie Anderson throwbacks.
Is there anything better than the D getting good penetration?
Not really. And that's another thing I forgot to mention in terms of pros this season is Tim DeRuyter's defense very good against good running backs. Like Jaden Ott, we talked about him right on par with Taj Brooks all year. You hold him to 42 yards, I think. RJ Harvey, Oregon didn't do a ton. Trying to remember some others. Devin Neal broke one really long run on that speed option. Besides that, you had him pretty bottled up. So I feel like you faced some really good running backs. C.J. Donaldson sort of had a little bit of a sophomore slump, but highly thought of coming into the year, and you kept him very much in check. So I was impressed by how well we defended the run against primary ball carriers pretty much all year. And part of that's by getting penetration, as alluded to in the question.
Big fan of penetration. Is there anything less surprising than finding out that Don Williams is not a casino guy? Were you surprised by that money, that Don Williams is not a casino fan?
No.
I did like his response that if he wanted to throw away money, he would just give it to some kid in need. Classic. Do you feel that last night's offense was what Kidley had been envisioning all season?
I answered it in the Discord a little bit. I'm happy that we won by 20, but if we're envisioning 6 yards per pass attempt, then I certainly hope not.
Agreed.
I think 7.5 is like normal. And so when you're playing an atrocious pass defense and you're a full yard and a half under that, to me, that's a bit of a red flag.
If you can run that exact offense, but not have guys just fall down while they catch the ball or have to dive for the ball, there was a lot of that last night. If there's just some semblance of yak with that offense, it looks so much better. Like you look at the sideline throws for most of the season, they look like dog shit. I was gonna try to stop cussing there, but dog crap because nobody broke a tackle, and then you break a couple tackles in the bowl game. It's like, oh, the sideline throws work, kind of. Let's try those to the wide receivers at the edge. But you just have, like, you see CeeDee Lamb catch a ball for the Cowboys on the sideline and get 15 yards because he breaks 2.5 tackles. It's like that's why you throw the sideline throw. But you just never had that this year. So with Josh Kelly and Micah Hudson and Jordan Brown, maybe you break a few more tackles next year and get a little more athletic. How good is Jacob Rodriguez's stash? Anybody see Jacob Rodriguez's stash?
It's very good. It was funny whenever he was wearing, or I guess he had taken his helmet off, and he and Barron had that clip of them lifting the trophy. It was kind of funny. It looked like they kind of lifted it up, held it for like 2 seconds, and then looked at each other and were like, well, this is kind of heavy. Like, this is a giant trophy. Let's put this down. They only held it up for a few seconds.
Should Kyle have gone to watch Tech basketball play 206 in Ken Palm, or gone to the bowl game and watch Tech play the 125th ranked defense? Any thoughts there? I think he chose what he wanted to do, and I think that's his prerogative.
I feel like that was addressed to y'all, unless I would refer to myself in third person.
Did we win because Kyle put $100 money line on Cal as an emotional hedge? So people are saying.
Many are saying.
What's your favorite broadcast pair / group across all sports you watch? I still like Buck and Aikman. I think Mike Tirico is the best play-by-play voice in the NFL right now. Could do without Collinsworth, but he doesn't bother me as much as some other guys. Burkhart and Olsen are really good. If Olsen shut the hell up every once in a while, he talks so much. Same thing with Tony Romo. Tony Romo just talks too much. But I would listen to them. And then Kevin Harlan is one of the GOATs.
I like Reese Davis. That might be a hot take, but I like him. They had him on that NFL game a few weeks back with like Dan Orlovsky, and that crew was terrible, man. They were so bad, but he was holding it down on the play-by-play. And then I really like Mike Breen. Shout out to the New York Knicks. That's not really a pair, but hey, let's get those two together and see what happens.
I like Herbstreit and Davis. I just hate that it seems like every game they call is Ohio State, Alabama. It's like I wish that y'all would go watch kind of like the grassroots of college football, and if it was, I don't know. I'm trying to think of a good example, like Arizona versus Utah in like a year where they're both in the top 25. Like I would love that broadcast, but I just don't. I don't watch the sport now from the vantage point of like really wanting to see Alabama versus Mississippi State on ESPN, and so that's usually the kind of game that duo gets the call for on Saturday night. But yeah, I like them. I wish that like Tim Brando and Gus Johnson would get in the booth together, because that would be good content.
Why?
Because it would be like terrible.
The nicknames back and forth would be brutal.
Yeah.
I could also say I hate Tim Brando. Petros Papadakis has the worst voice in sports.
Yeah, I'm not a big Petros guy. I thought everybody was out on him, and then this year I started seeing some pro Petros kind of stuff, and I was surprised by that.
He knows what he's talking about, and he doesn't bother me like with how he calls the game. It's just his voice is annoying.
I still don't like Joel Klatt either.
Yeah, I will always hate Joel Klatt after the infamous buddy guy situation.
Our friend Reed wants me to move on so bad. He's like, dude, it was 3 years ago. I'm like, I don't care. I still don't like him.
I will never. I love Gus Johnson. I know a lot of people don't, but I don't listen to. I don't watch as many Fox games anymore because Joel Klatt, that Colorado bum.
I do think we could do better at some of the highest levels, like these exclusive games on Amazon Thursday night. Those are terrible. With Herbstreit is out of his element calling NFL, and Al Michaels has lost a step or two.
Oh, at least.
Yeah, or 3 or 4. And I feel like Monday night. Who's Monday Night Football now?
Buck and Aikman.
Okay, yeah, like I'm fine with that. For a while though, it was like Booger, and I miss Sean McDonough. He was good.
Yeah, he's back in college, or he does some NFL. What does he do now?
Jason Witten was terrible too.
I saw him the other day. Sean McDonough, does he do the Notre Dame games?
He does college now for sure, but I can't quite put a finger on like which conference he.
I will say they ruined my favorite crew the last couple of years was Mark Jones, RG3. And then they moved RG3 to some other guy, and he's not quite as funny without Mark Jones. That was a really funny pick.
I think for a B team crew, I don't know the guy's name, but the guy who is a partner with Devin Gardner, he's the play-by-play guy, and Devin Gardner does color.
Yeah.
I think he's pretty good for like usually getting like a third or fourth tier Big 12 game on FS1. I think he does a good job. Like he punches above his weight calling games like that.
Yeah. Certainly better than some of the A game guys. Why does Kyle hate fun?
That's news to me.
I guess that's the merry-go-round. You hated the merry-go-round, and that's fun for some people?
If that's fun, then have fun.
Inbounds or out of bounds? Bringing up a 2-month-old fantasy football smack talk receipt in the group text after eliminating the guy who was the perpetrator of said smack talk. Money, would you bring up 2-month-old beef after eliminating said beef bringer?
Of course. You talk, we keep the receipts. That's what being petty is for.
I
That's
only,
it for me.
I only swing back. For some added context to this strict hypothetical, let's say early in the season you trade away you trade away Justin Fields and a suspended Alvin Kamara. Justin Fields stinks, by the way, and a suspended Alvin Kamara in return for Trevor Lawrence, one of the brightest up-and-coming quarterbacks in a good offense. And it doesn't quite pan out through the first half of the season. Trevor Lawrence kind of stinks. Justin Fields has a few games where he goes off. AK comes back from suspension, is doing really well. And you have the gall in the group text in front of everybody, not to me directly, in front of all of our friends, to be like, oh, thanks for the trade. Justin Fields is the best quarterback in the league, and you threw in Alvin Kamara for free. And then on Sunday Night Football, with the only player remaining in the game is Trevor Lawrence, who you derided 2 months ago, and he puts me over the top to eliminate you, I'm going to bring it up in the group text. So I hit reply on a text from like October 13th, and I'm proud of it. And someday they will learn their lesson and go, I'll wait till the end of the year. I'll wait till Kyle's out of the playoffs, and then I'll unleash the smack talk about how stupid his trades were. But until that day comes, I will keep the receipts, and I will keep swinging back.
Does Trevor Lawrence have like 8 points tonight?
I needed like 3, and I waited all half for him to finally get it so I could send that text.
Did you send the text after he was running and just fumbled out of nowhere?
Yeah, no, I was worried though, because like he had no points through like the first almost 2 quarters, and he got rolled up and he's playing with a sprained ankle. I was like, oh my God, I'm about to lose by 1.5 points because he re-injured it, but he got up and it was good.
Oh my God.
I was worried though. I was worried.
Hilarious. The fact that you not only swung back, as you colloquially said, but responded to the actual text from October, that makes it even better.
Oh yeah.
If you follow along the Gambling Gauchos Twitter feed, you know that Kyle does swing back emphatically. All right. Final thought. Used to. Final
I'll put those days behind me.
Final thoughts.
Yeah. Hang on.
Money. Any final thoughts while he looks his up?
Texas Tech's next 3 opponents in basketball are UT Arlington, Sam Houston State, and North Alabama. They are all higher in Ken Palm right now than Vanderbilt. So look for 3 games for Texas Tech to continue to tune up a little bit in light of Cambridge's absence before the big boy games get started January 6th.
Here's my
and happy holidays.
Happy holidays.
Happy holidays. Here's my final thoughts. Actually, I'm going to pose it as a question first. 2010, the first season without Mike Leach as head coach, through 2021, the last season without Joey McGuire as head coach, Texas Tech football played 109 Power 5 teams in that 12-year span, 12 seasons. Can you guess our record in those 109 games?
Let's see. Did you win 40 or less?
You won 40. Exactly 40. That's incredible.
I am sharp.
40 and 69.
Wow.
In 12 seasons. That's a 36.7% win rate against Power 5 competition. Like 1 in 3 plus a little bit. No bueno. That is why it's such a tough stretch for Tech fans. You had like 1 or 2 blips on the radar, like the 8-5 Holiday Bowl win year. Like, okay, sweet. Like very little beyond that. 2 seasons. Joey McGuire's played 23 games against teams currently in the Power 5. 13 and 10. That's 56.5% win rate. So basically plus 20%ed you against Power 5 competition, which is right in line with Big 12 record. Obviously, heavily correlated here. That's most of the Power 5 teams you play. And I think we're now 8-2 in November, December, and you were something like, I don't know, 30% in November before Joey got here in that 10 or 12 years. So I know we took our lumps this season. It wasn't perfect. I know losing in Laramie sucks. I know losing by 50 to Texas sucks. trust me, I know sitting in the cold at the Independence Bowl in Shreveport sucks compared to some of the bowl games we thought we might be playing in. But you're not without some pretty, I think, tangible forward progress and momentum. And that's like, aside from all the recruiting stuff, which we talked about that a little bit, we'll see where everything lands in the portal. It seems like you're going to have a top 15 portal class, top 20, 25-ish high school class. So color me still optimistic going forward. I've probably led on a little bit in terms of the sunshine pumping. And I know that's not what some people want to hear. But that's where I'm at. I still feel really good about our overall trajectory, feel really good about this coaching staff and the future. Wish this season could have delivered one or two more key wins to kind of make it a little bit more palatable. But I still feel good. I think that's a good note to end on.
I was going to push that when you're finished, didn't I? It was a little hair trigger there.
It's like getting the hook on stage.
Man.
Like, Kyle, the red light is flashing. Shut up.
If Rabbit sacked the Wyoming quarterback,
Don't do this to me.
and you finished 8-5, how much different is this year? Even if you take them to overtime, but they're in the deep end of the pool and they drown and you don't, that the season is completely different. So I mean, one play difference, and in between 8-5 and 7-6, I'm down with. And as you said, the recruiting's looking up. Go Raiders. That was really loud, by the way. All right. That's it. That's all I got.
Love y'all. Merry Christmas.
I think we'll have another episode before Christmas, but
I'm just a big Christmas guy, so I wish people Merry Christmas all December.
huge Christmas guy.